Okay, today's a special day because I have my friend, my business partner, Cory King from Knoxville, Tennessee, with me. Cory, welcome to the Income Flip, brother.
What's up, man? Thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to this one.
This is great. This is great. No, I wanted to put you in the hot seat and have the audience kind of understand your background, understand your history, understand the income flip journey that you're on, right?
Sure.
As an agent investor, right? So we have a series called the Agent Investor Advantage, and you're playing the game at a really high level. And we were just talking before we jumped on here on how much activity you got going on right now. It's a little crazy, right? It's a little nuts. And so it forces you to level up as an entrepreneur when you have that much activity going on.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, right, let's go back, right, to why you even got into the wonderful world of real estate and real estate investing. How did it all start for you, Cory?
Yeah. So my initial journey into real estate really stems from just being 22. I was working like bartending, kitchen management, or in the restaurant business back then, like 2009, and it was a point in my life where I didn't go down the path of a lot of my peers, which was going to higher education, college, etc. So there was, at the time in my life, I was really grappling with this idea of like, well, I'm 22. What do I have to show for it by now? I've got friends that are graduating with degrees. There was some of that just competitiveness that we all maybe have, or just the whole comparison angle that I think dampens over time as you just kind of find your own lane and just have experience. But like early on, that whole like, they're doing this, so I got to do that. I don't know, call it competitiveness, call it just comparison. It was very real for me. And so for me, I was like, well, I got to have something to show for myself. So buying a home for me was the equivalent of achievement of having a 4-year degree in hand, right? Somehow I just
Yeah,
made that
yeah,
mentally.
yeah. You went to college. I bought a house.
Yeah,
Sucker.
yeah. That was like trade. Yeah, exactly. 100 grand in debt, one way or the other, right? Who won in that game? So it was really that, I guess, was how I got started. House hacked, AKA roommates at that time, which was just, something to do. It was more so, again, just kind of out of boredom. Like, let me just move in my buddies. How fun would it be just have my buddies live with me? And the bonus is I get to live for free out of that. It was a pretty good deal. And so then I found a fun hustle flipping lots in 2010, 11, 12, 13, going to auctions, buying lots for cheap in subdivisions that crashed.
Cory, how did you like? I don't think I've ever
Yeah, how'd
asked you
that
like,
happen?
how did that happen? Like, where did that freaking idea come from?
So it was, I don't know, just an epiphany, if you will. Like, I really got brought out to this auction. My buddy brought me because he was going to buy like collectibles. He would buy like weird art, stuff like that would show up at these. It's an auction house, so there's cars and used cars and boats and tools and businesses that went out of business, and then they're selling all this extra equipment and collectibles. I like comic books, so like I'd buy big boxes of like 100 comic books for an average of like $20. But in there, I'd hit some stuff. I'd hit books that were worth $300, like one book, right? So he brought me
You
there just
you
to
and
go.
Gary V. You and Gary V.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, right. So like I would buy collectibles for like part of myself, my own just enjoyment, and then also to hustle, sell some stuff. I'd buy some tools, and like sell those at the pawn shop on my way home, because then that would cover my gas. I could buy the drill or saw for $5 at the auction and sell it for 20 at the pawn shop, and then there's my gas or my lunch kind of thing, right? But it was like while I was there that I was seeing real estate come up, and I was like, oh, like, okay, there's something there, because the used car guys are fighting over the cars, and you've got your various subsects are going to these auctions. But I noticed the real estate was rarely competitive. Obviously this is 2010, 11, 12, the market was really just kind of down still. So no one was really competing, but I was seeing stuff and I was like, well, dude, that's cheap though. Like, they're basically giving it away here. And so seeing the first one happen, then I go back to my computer, because the cell phone wasn't even really that, like an iPhone, I don't know if it existed right then. So I'd go back and like look, I'm like, oh, like, dude, that lot, Zillow says it's worth 10 and it sold for 3. Like, there's a spread there. So then it became the whole like, what if I could just hustle that? What if I could sell that? right?
I
Like
love it.
just
It's
figure it
no
out.
different. There's no different than a comic book, right? It's just like just a few more zeros, right? It's the
Little
same
extra
game.
steps, yeah,
Yeah.
but like same game. And so then the next auction was like 2 months later. They were like every 2 months or so. So then I was like, okay, now I'm prepared. Now I at least kind of understood what I was looking at. So then I could look in advance on uh, Google Maps, or Google Earth, like, hey, where is that? Because it tells you on the auction block, like coming up. So
Hmm.
you can do some cursory research up front. I could see, well, how far away is this from where I live? And if it was within maybe a couple hours, 2 hours or so, I was in East Central Florida, right? So Space Coast. So if it was Orlando, Metro, North, South, kind of in that zone, I would never go to like Tampa, but call it an hour sort
Hmm.
of north of me, hour south, and then east. Um, well, if I was my day off, I knew I could go drive out there and go drive around the neighborhood. How developed is it? How is it? And I would then strategically, I wasn't just buying anything like at random. I would then buy stuff that had a home, say, next to it. It was like the vacant lot, and then
Mm.
there was a house, and then there might be another vacant house, and then a lot, or it'd be between two houses. So it wasn't just a scatter shot. It was very strategic. So there was times that I didn't buy anything, right? I would just wait for the ones that had the stuff that made sense, and then I could go to the auction and buy the lot for 2, 3 thousand bucks. On it was like kind of the average cost at the time, but the Zestimate, Zillow would still say like 8 to 10. So then I could just
Hmm.
go. Then I was like, well, saying who would actually buy this thing? Um, Probably go talk to the neighbor,
Hmm.
who wants to double their lot size. So I hit up the neighbor and wrote a letter and like knock on doors, just old school kind of stuff, right? But then that created traction. I recognized like I could reach out in advance, just basically saying like, hey, I've got this lot. Before I even bought it, I would take that step of like, hey, I've got this lot. Like, would you want to buy it? Zillow says it's worth 10. Here's a little Zestimate printout, and yeah, I mean, 9 times out of 10 they'd say yeah, or it
Corey,
would be,
do you remember
honey,
the
let me go,
first
let me
one?
talk to my wife, and then okay, well maybe I. Do you know if the neighbor, especially if it was on the other side, that was always the catch, was if there was a house, a lot, and then a house, because then if this person said no, I'd be like, well that's cool, like no worries. Do you think like the neighbor might be? Do you think they would say something? Well, hold on a second, honey, babe, you know what I mean? Let's put you on hold for 30 seconds. So you hear them calling their spouse in the other room, and then cool. Hey, well maybe not 10, but would you take 8? And oh God. I mean, yeah, I guess I could take 8. If we could just close pretty quickly, like that would work. And so, right, cool. There's a couple $1,000 for just
Corey,
figuring it out.
do you remember your first one? The first one
I
that
do.
worked, right? Like,
Hmm.
yeah,
It was
because
it was
that's a big
mind
deal.
blowing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly,
it
exactly.
truly blew my mind that it was that straightforward of a thing that I could line up the buyer. Like I was essentially like double closing, right? It was almost like wholesale, even though I really didn't kind of understand all what that was. For me, it just logically
Hmm.
made sense that like this person would be it, but I could reach out to the neighbor in advance of the auction, so then I could just buy it and have my buyer right afterwards, so I could sell it within a week or so of actually buying it. I could put in my warranty deed, go to the courthouse, file that, and then immediately turn around and sell it. And it was awesome. Like it was the coolest little side hustle. Um,
First one, a couple $1,000. Do you know?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was literally like a $3,000 lot down in Palm Bay, and I sold it to the neighbor. I want to say for like just under 8 grand. It was like $7,800 or something like that. But it was just enough of like, oh, like it works. I was just like,
You
oh, that
doubled your
actually
money.
worked. I tried it. Yeah.
You more than doubled your money.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, well, that was cool. So then rinse, repeat, right? Now I understood how that works. So then I could go, again, it wasn't every time, but I understood where,
Corey,
like, I understood how that was done.
were you working at the restaurant during this time?
I was,
Okay,
yeah.
so let me get that straight. You're working at the restaurant, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden, like, which is a lot of work. It's hard, right? You're working long hours. You love it, like you really loved working there. But all of a sudden, you just made 4 grand, like just flipping a lot, and
Which
you
is
must
more
have,
than I made in a month on average. Like my average, I think, monthly income was like right around $2,000 a month.
which I
Was
think
like
that
what we
there's
got taken
always
home.
a moment in time where the entrepreneur like connects the dots, and they're like, oh, there's a bigger world out here,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, it was cool. And I remember going to ones where I could I could tell something was like a good deal, but then I didn't understand. Maybe also either I didn't understand slash I always had an apprehension to like borrowing money, like asking people to borrow money, or they I always took it as like just kind of this very negative connotation behind it versus like we call it like leverage at the end of the day, right? Like I could leverage this or that, but I always took it like a little bit more personal. So it took me a long time to get over that hump of like, oh, I could go partner with somebody, I could borrow this money from here or there, because I remember seeing lots come up that while it wasn't in my area of where I would typically buy, I would see stuff that I'm like, dude, that's a really good deal. I can think of one famously that was in a community in North Carolina that was it was a luxury community. It had its own private airstrip in it, that kind of money, right? So the lots were on average $100,000 lots. And I found like research all the covenants and restrictions. Like I was going deep in this stuff, right? And I remember seeing, their requirements were like this minimum square footage, which was like 5,000 or something like that. I'm like, dude, this is crazy. And somebody bought one of those lots for like $10,000. And I just remember like sitting in that room of like, because I didn't have that much money like squared away at the time. And so I was like, I remember when that gavel like banged, like that dude just made a boatload of cash, like a boatload of cash, right? And at the time, right, I could have like gone to somebody, hey, like I know I've got this play, I've been doing this thing, it's gonna cost 10, but we could make 10x that number.
Yeah, but your mind wasn't your mind wasn't there
yet.
You weren't there yet. Yeah,
no.
That's cool. So at what point did you decide that you were going to stop working at the restaurant, which you owned a piece of that, right? Still do today, right? Like I believe, and that you were going to venture into the wonderful world of real estate. And did you start off on the investment side first, then get your license, or did you get your license first, or like how did that come about?
Yeah, so it started about just in moving to Knoxville. So like I met my wife while she was in grad school. I was at the restaurant, had really hit kind of a ceiling of achievement. Like as we grew, that district or area manager position that would be the next like logical progression in my journey. We were heavy from promoting within, so there was already somebody who got that job, and then in my mind there was already somebody else that would be in the backup spot. So I was then having to make that justification of like, well, do I want to do this for another 7 to 10 years to maybe get that job then? And I was like, kind of no, because I could then tell like I was going to start heading down the path of marriage and kids and all that jazz. And that business is a beautiful, amazing industry, teaches a lot, and like it's brutal. It's very hard to like to have any kind of life when you're doing 80 to 100 hour weeks and all that. So in that fast forward, we moved to Knoxville, and I wanted something that gave me a good earning potential, because I did understand like the value of I could trade my time for money, and I might as well just trade it for like the most money I can get out of it. And I didn't want to have something that I was under the thumb of anybody else, so to speak. I liked that about having the restaurant as well, as like I could choose to work 16-hour days, but like how I worked that was my choice. If I wanted to go midday between lunch and dinner service and run an errand, or go hit a bucket of balls at a driving range or something like that, like I had the choice to do that. I wasn't stuck to the wall. So I needed something that I could do. And I'd bought and sold some real estate in Florida, so I understood the mechanics of it. And I mean, the agents I had that I worked with then, some of that was like, bro, if that person can do it, I can do that job. There was a little bit of that. One person like I knew, she was a bartender at our like one of our rival restaurants. So part of me was like, bro, like she was just bartending like a year ago kind of thing. Like I could more than do this. So it really started off actually just on the agent side was where it was. I understood the mechanics of it. I could just go out and create opportunity and all that. But it was what got me onto the investing side. Was spurned by, I would say, entrepreneurial like spark, if you will, or just happenstance, where I had a home I picked up as a listing for an expired listing in South Knoxville that was this Frankenstein of a property where it was a single family home, and then somebody converted the garage into a duplex. So it was this kind of Frankenstein triplex setup. And I was like, dude, nobody locally is going to buy this wacky thing. Like, this is wild. And so, not knowing what I don't know, I was like, well, who can I find that'll buy this kind of thing, right? So I put a $10 Facebook ad in Los Angeles, California, because I'm just like, let's just go for a big pond, right? There's like 8 million people there or something like that. I'm just going to throw an ad in LA and see what I get out of it. And I had this guy called me, Declan, who called me. He was selling a condo in San Diego and called and inquired about it. Now, he didn't end up buying that property, but he sold that property and was doing a mix of like a 1031 exchange and then some cash, right? So he was, at that point, kind of entrusted me to help him find where am I going to go put this money. And so over the course of, it was less than a year, we bought 6 houses, something like that.
Dude, what a great return on that.
Yeah,
that $50 ad spend or whatever the number was, right?
Yeah, it was literally, I'm telling you, it was literally like $10. It was something so silly of just like, let me throw $10 in LA and see what I get. But he called me, and then it was, we bought like 6 houses, a mix of single family, some multifamily. And so in that process, I recognized like, whoa, like talk about really stretching your dollars as far as that goes, right? Because we took essentially $400,000 at the time, and that portfolio is worth, it's probably 10x in value. I mean, really, like when you look at that like appreciation and everything now, and like how it works, like massive growth. So I saw that too, and through working with him, I saw like the opportunity was there. I saw what he was doing. He was a guy who was a soon-to-be empty nester, who had some cash, but was looking to position himself like, where can I go that I'm going to be able to kind of really phase out? And I had heard good things about Knoxville. And so in working with him, I saw the power of like what that could do for you, like the power of real estate and cash flow. But in helping him out, I also learned a tremendous amount. Like I was the one helping source contractors and going under the house with the home inspector to see like what's all going on here, what's working, lining up contractors, overseeing that.
What a great way! What a great way to learn the game on somebody else's dime. Really, when you think about it, it's like
truly,
you're learning the game.
It was a really awesome trade-off, in that. I mean, I learned a tremendous amount, built out some amazing relationships. I mean, with contractors that I still work with, like to this day. Some of these people are still my go-to people, and so it was. Working through him and that, I was like, oh, well, now there's a cool upside to this, and I understood the players and what areas were starting to grow. So that's what started sending me on the journey of like, okay, well, if I'm making this income from the agent business, I need to be reinvesting in real estate. I need to be buying something that's going to be able to create the same type of cash flow that Declan has, right? And now he's retired. Like he's got a little bit of money coming through from his W-2 he was doing. But then it's just the cash flows. Like he's chilling. He bounces around like Joshua Tree and like the whole Southern California area. He just living the dream. I love now. His kids are growing. Like, yeah, it's awesome.
Well, what's great is that what opened your mind was real world application. Some people will read a book and they're like, like I'm just tired of working for the man. I'm tired of like I don't see any kind of like upside. I need to do something different. And so they start venturing into the world of owning businesses or buying real estate. And it sounds like you got paid to learn, right? It opened up your eyes and you said, okay, I can create my own income flip, right? I can create my own income flip by continuing to build this cash machine that we talk about. This agent business, like, is this cash machine, and then taking those dollars and starting to build a portfolio that essentially is like an insurance policy for your life, right? Like you're not gonna, you'll get some, I know your minimum requirement is like $500 a month. Like every time you buy, that's like the minimum that you want to make in cash flow, but nobody's getting rich on that, right? Like it's really over time, those assets will go up in value, and over time the tenant will pay down that asset, and over time that rent's going to double in value, right? And so like what happens is it all just starts expanding. Right.
Yeah, there's a big compounding effect there, and you're right. Like, never when I was renting did my landlord come to me like, Cory, guess what, dude? Good news, rent's gonna go down $50 next year. Like, how you feel about that? Like, that never came out. That absolutely never came up. Right?
You're still waiting.
Yeah, still waiting for that rent to go down.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. There's a compounding effect. You're right. I have a minimum threshold that it makes sense for me to make that investment. But I'm very much playing the long game in this right now.
Well, let's
That's
talk
my life
about
side.
let's talk about something that I think is really important. Anybody that wants to create this income flip in their own life, they have to start figuring out which game they're going to play, right? So some of you might be making your active income from wholesaling, others rehabbing, others lending, some agents, right? And the way I always look at those businesses, if you don't take them past being like self-employed, they're just jobs, right? The goal is to, can you create that job into an actual business that creates leveraged income from you? Like, I don't like to call it passive income because nothing's passive. You still have to manage the team, all that stuff. But like leveraged income, meaning like, can I have other people do this and I get paid, right, in return? But simultaneously, you need to figure out what kind of assets you want to buy over time that could produce a good, again, another income stream for you. And so you found a buy box. Let's talk about your buy box, right? And by the way, somebody listening right now, that buy box could be another business. This is what I've learned. It could be
There you
like
go.
you want to go buy a vending machine business that and have somebody manage it and like make a little income stream from the vending machine business. It could, like, I've now realized that these houses that we buy are just little businesses. Some are more profitable than others. Typically, it's the operator that will either manage them well or manage them poorly to make a profit in that.
Yeah.
And so, but you had to figure out, like, you had to figure out a zone, right? And you had to figure out, like, what you wanted to buy. So what is that? Share that with people.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's really the game that my wife and I really play is certainly just buy and hold long-term rentals. We niche down in part of the portfolio, which is in a little small historic district next to downtown that we utilize for student housing and like student rentals, right? Because they offer a disproportionate like amount higher comparative to other like market rents because we can go buy the bedroom right in this area.
Co-living, essentially.
The other than that, like I don't really, those are historic homes and they come with their own historic problems, but I am playing the long game on those as well. Not only like is the income good, but I also know that there's always going to be a market for old houses. Like people that really appreciate the old stuff, and they will pay a premium for it. It's a smaller buyer pool, but it's real, right? So I'm willing to play that long game, like in that neighborhood. For me, that has a very big upside long game hold to it that I think is good. The rest of that, outside of that, we really look for 1980 and newer, 3-bed, 2-bath in essentially the suburbs. There's about 3 to 4 zip codes in Knoxville that I primarily focus on for the rest of it. Part of that's like where the ball's going, to a degree, a little bit more in the outskirts, or I look for where if the average price point for Knoxville is say around $400,000, I want to be about like 20% below that, 10 to 20% below that, because then I've got a longer runway. I'm already playing like a long time horizon anyway, so I can wait, but I'm going to use that to like my advantage.
Well, you also know people are getting pushed out of, we have a real affordability issue here. And so
Sure.
people are like, okay, well, I'm getting pushed out. I can't afford to live in downtown Knoxville, so I'm going to go a little bit further out. I'll get more bang for my buck. I'm willing to do that in exchange, to be able to buy something. And you're kind of putting yourself in the path of growth, right? Have you ever pulled like any of the county development plans? Have you ever pulled any of that
Yeah.
stuff to kind of figure out where money's going?
Yeah, definitely. So I was at the city county building last year when they passed their missing middle housing initiative, right, which kind of rezoned a lot of the area around, say, within a mile or two of downtown Knoxville. They changed some of those zoning overlays to allow more mixed use, more infill development, more small multifamily 2 to 4 units on lots that maybe used to really only just have single family homes on them, or just increased density. So I look at that, and then the county spent a lot of money in a long time putting forth an initiative that looked at the growth path overall for those outer areas to see how can we best use the existing corridors that come out of downtown and just incentivize development along those. And so yeah, to that point, I've looked at that information to see, where's the ball headed, where they really, what areas are they designated to just stay rural, and then what areas are they open for some flexibility. There's one other kind of cheat code that I'll use too when it comes for like looking for areas of opportunity. And I share this too with a lot of our like out of state investors or people that are looking at this area. Like I also look at just some of the big retail stores, things like that. Target, for example, is my favorite one to use. I'm like, just go on a map and look at where Target is in Knoxville, and then just go about 3 miles radius around Target. You're going to be just fine, because they spend a crazy amount of money doing all that demographic, psychographic research before they ever put a store somewhere. Like they know. And for some people, like my wife, for example, that's one of her requirements. Is like, we got to live within 10 minutes of a Target. So I just know, like, okay, cool. Like I'll just plink around and look in those areas, and typically is going to be a pretty solid. It's been pretty solid for us thus far.
No, that's such good advice. I mean, we I think about it. We live 5 minutes from a Target, right? When I was down in St. Pete, I was like, I specifically was looking for a place that was within, because I didn't have a car, right? So I was like, I need to be within 5 minutes of a Target or, a Walmart or something like that, right? So
Aldi, I look for like Aldi, Target,
Aldi.
Either a Kroger or a Publix, a little bit more of like a nicer grocery store will do that, because again, they do all of their research like way in advance, and so I'll kind of cheat and look at that, like, hey, is it within a 2 mile radius of that?
Do you guys have like a Wegmans? Do you know what a Wegmans is?
I know of that, but we don't have that.
Okay,
that
it's like a higher end chain, right? Like, and I remember Matt, who's one of our leaders as well, runs the Gainesville location. There was that similar to you. Like, he went on a listing appointment. The seller's like, "Why don't you buy it, Matt?" Matt's like, I should probably buy this. I should think about buying this, right? And then he had me go look at it, and he's like, "Do you think this is good?" I was like, "Man, you can throw a rock and hit Wegmans." It's right. It's like the location isn't any better than this, and the price in relation to what he was getting was fantastic. I was like, this is a home run. And by the way, cool note on this. He paid that house off in 1 year. We call it his 12 payment payoff plan. 1 year. It was a $300,000 house, right?
Wow.
Paid it off in 1 year. Now, his agent machine was spitting off so much cash that he took that cash and then did the 12-month payoff plan on that particular house.
Cool.
And somebody might be like, well, why would you deploy so much capital, right, in that one? But he wanted to solidify his home base and implement what he calls the Pac-Man strategy, right? So now what he does is he takes all of the cash flow from that paid off asset and he pays down the next asset. Cool. Just kind of like how Dave Ramsey at one point would teach you how to like first pay off your, the lowest credit card. It's a snowball. Yeah, exactly. Wow. Yeah. Cool. So Matt calls it the Pac-Man, right? And he does it with houses.
That's an insightful way to go about it.
Yeah.
Wow, I'll have to actually look at that. I've been kind of...
Yeah, you gotta you should talk to Matt about it.
Strategy, yeah.
Yeah.
I've been like, as I make the bit of cash, I'm just like, I'm gonna go buy this house with it, and this came from he's up there with KW, like one of their wealth trainers.
I know who you're talking about.
Oh, the name will come to me all of a sudden. He talked about like in
older guy
strategy. Yeah.
Yeah. We should know him. I just totally OT. I know who he's talking about.
I know. It'll come to me. It'll come to me as I tell the story.
Okay.
But anyway, he talked about like getting to where you have the amount of money you want to make in a year needs to be like 10% of your like portfolio's value. So he was basically like, if you want to make $100,000 a year, you need to go get up to like $1 million of real estate and then just pay it all off as absolutely fast as possible. Mm-hmm. And like that should work out to about that. Gene Rivers. Yes.
That's it.
My God, thank you.
Gene Rivers.
Yeah.
Thank you. Gene, you're the man.
Yes, But this is where I took a little bit of that, right? I was like, okay, like if I have a number in mind for like what I want to retain into retirement, then I'm in the mindset of like, well, let me just go pick up all that like right now while I can get some good deals and I can just have some of the time ahead of me to essentially get it and then just hammer away at it. But I appreciate Matt's strategy as well. That's actually
it's It's interesting. I flew Gene up because he was in Florida to speak to Grid one year, and this was like a while ago, right?
Wow.
This might have been like 6 or 7 years ago, and he laid that out like on the board and kind of said, "Hey, like buy as much as you can, like now, right?" And his thinking behind it was like, you want to work out what you want to make in retirement, and then you got to start buying as much as you can possibly, and just start like slogging it away and paying it off, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, you want to get into debt, right? Like you want to get into this good debt, like you got to manage it. You don't want any one of them to eat you alive, right? Like I had a friend of mine that was like, Rob, I can negative cash flow a couple $100 on this one deal, and it still works out. And I was like, but at some point it doesn't work out, right? And what happens if you get sick? Like if you've got one that's negative cash flow $200 a month, because his whole idea was, well, it's going to get paid towards principal, blah, blah, blah. I was like, and tax write-offs, and people start justifying it. I go, but it happens in reverse, right? So if you have 10 that are like that, now that's like real money, right? You got 20 that are like that, and you're only one medical issue away from being in trouble. And guess what happened? Like the next year, he got diagnosed with cancer, right? He was forced to sell, a couple of assets along the way, which were painful, but they had a lot of equity.
Sure.
Luckily, it's all worked out. He's all better. He's all in remission. But I just remember being like, that strategy works until it doesn't. It's like...
That's why I have my minimum number, for that same kind of reason. Like, no, like it just needs to be $500 after principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. I mean, that's really my 500 met. It's not after vacancy and repairs and all that. It's really just PITI and $500 because we still self-manage most of our stuff. We can offset some of those things.
Cory, I want to pivot with you real fast because there's probably listeners here that live in California or live in like some of these more expensive states, and you're in Knoxville, Tennessee, and you probably see some investors that execute the long-term investment strategy really, really well. You see others that just execute it pretty bad, right? If somebody listening now is a like investing out of state, what advice would you give them on how do they grow their network? How do they find the deal? Like what advice would you just give them?
If they one, I would call it a hack to all of that is if any of the markets that you're looking in has a grid community, go plug right into that. Go connect with your grid leader because there's your built-in community like right then and there. Like that person is your central node to everything else. That's one of our big, I would like to think is one of our big value propositions just for investing here in Knoxville, right? Like we've amassed a community of over 2,000 people over the last 4 years. You need a painter? Awesome. I've got like 10 that I've personally worked with. I don't just hand out information just randomly, right? Like if you're looking at a market, like does it have one of those communities already? Like if it does, fantastic. Now you've got somebody you can go connect with that can sort of open up their network to you in that regard. So you don't have to kind of ad hoc, like who's a good electrician in this area and who's this and that. Like go find somebody who's actually kind of doing the thing already and just ask them, because I found people will genuinely reach out to help and pass that along. That's probably the easiest, most straightforward way in terms of if you're looking to get into there and kind of open up into a network is look for if there's grid, amazing. If there's other just like a sizable real estate investor meetup. I mean, there's RIAs, there's other ones like go find like that person because then there's going to be
I call them, that one person is the node, right? Like they have access to where investors are buying, what products are good, which contractors are great, which are not so great, what to be aware of, the funky little rules that every county has, like, when you start thinking about just like the Airbnb business, like there's certain places in Downtown St. Pete does not allow them, like a right in old historic Northeast by the Vinoy. I didn't know that, right? But you just go a couple blocks up and it is allowed, right? And so you need to know the rules. You need somebody to be the guide. And so you can go to the node. The node can give you all the information, right? That person can give you all the information. That's cool. What about when you start looking, because I know you talk to a lot of out-of-state investors, right? What are some of the markets? It seems like there's a lot of attraction to Tennessee, just in general, right?
Yeah,
Knoxville being one of them. But what other markets are you hearing from investors currently?
What other markets say around here are ones we're
Well,
looking at?
not like you might be talking to people and they're talking to you, but they're also like, well, I'm also looking in Alabama, or I'm also looking in like North Carolina, or I'm also looking like, what are some of the states that you hear repeatedly?
Yeah, I definitely hear. I definitely hear other parts of Tennessee. I certainly hear North Carolina, either Charlotte Metro or Raleigh Metro. Ohio, is pretty popular for a lot of folks, especially that are, say, maybe more cash flow oriented in their goals, because that's definitely part of our intake process as we're talking with a lot of out-of-state folks. Is like, what's your goal? What game are we playing here right now? Are we trying to just completely replace the W-2 income by picking up, houses that are going to offset that? Like, cool, there's a strategy for that, and there's markets that can do that. Oftentimes it's at the detriment of long-term appreciation. Like, yeah, the home is $60,000 and it rents for $1,000 a month, but it's been worth $60,000 for the last 20 years. It's never going to be worth more than that money.
Corey,
it depends on the game.
I love that you brought that up. My experience has been, and by the way, like interviewing lots of investors on this podcast around that single idea, right, is that those cash flow markets never work out the way people think they work out, because the asset value never really goes up in value. The tenant turnover is pretty high, right? The biggest cost is typically tenant turnover. So what you thought looked good on paper isn't. That asset still requires a new HVAC at some point and a new roof, and it's hard to start justifying the cost of that new roof and that new HVAC when like you see the asset value just kind of staying where it's at. Like, and I experienced that when I went into a submarket. It was like, okay, this thing got a new HVAC. I bought it for 50 grand. 15 years later, it's still worth 50 grand. I had to put a new roof in it. I had to have a new HVAC. I had to have a new kitchen. I'm like, any money that I did make in cash flow just went back into this thing, and I didn't benefit from the appreciation of that asset. And I remember interviewing this one gentleman that he bought like 250 houses, right? And he's like, you're like, you would think, Rob, that I was making money hand over fist, but the problem was the properties over time were eating me alive, right? That one needed work and that one needed work, and like next thing I know, I've got 15, 16 that need new roofs, right? And I realized that buying better quality at higher prices, right, newer product was the way to go, which is why he started getting into build to rent, right? And focus more on that. And so I just caution any investor that's looking at just pure cash flow markets like that, that there's like a balance, right? And within those cash flow markets, you have different tiers of assets in those cash flow markets, right? And so just do your homework, do your due diligence, find the Cory in that market that can help you kind of understand that play. But Knoxville sounds like, right now, what I like about Knoxville personally, when I'm seeing from afar, is that it's a sweet combination of like appreciation, because there's a lot of people moving into the area and it's a growing area, and yet, yeah, you're not making as much cash flow, but it's still there, right? It's still there, and you can make the numbers work. Like the purchase, like in my market right now, a $480,000 house is renting for $2,500 a month. So the purchase to rent ratio is like really, really off, right? And you might be looking at your purchase to rent ratio being like the $300,000 asset being $2,200 a month or something like. Is that about right?
Pretty close. Yeah, overall, I mean, we definitely see the market at the end of the day definitely has a threshold by which like it's going to allow. If we're talking about just straight up long-term 12-month lease or more kind of thing, like yes, there's sort of a market cap or threshold to which it will just bear. Some markets it's more, but like Knoxville, for example, yeah, that upper threshold is in that 2,500, 2,800 maybe, and that's really the upper end stuff.
For a $300,000 house. 350?
No, I mean, yeah, that's fair. I mean, 350 range is going to push you in that. Call it anywhere between 2,300 and 2,700 a month, like range, right? Depending on area and size and amenities and all that kind of thing, you can go for it. That's kind of your ratio, your range. So you're right. It's not a 1% rule. I mean, are those around? Yeah, but they're rare. I mean, they're a lot rarer than they were just years ago, right? Just how the market is. But there is still that sweet spot where you can still positively cash flow, right? You're not, even after vacancy, repairs, management, people can still find a little bit of cash flow in there. For some investors, I talk with too, that the numbers might shake out to where they can cover principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. They're kind of pity payment, we call it, like PITI. They can set money aside for vacancy and for repairs, but the management costs, let's say, right, for some markets that might be 8 to 10% range for Knoxville. That is, so I'm sure in your market's probably similar. Sometimes that's the margin that we could be talking about in terms of cash flow, like positive cash flow versus just flat, meaning you're not gaining any extra cash, but your base is covered. You're setting a little bit of money aside for vacancy and repairs, and you've got management in place. And if you don't have anything else, like that is still doable, right? For some people, though, they might still that's really just not quite there. Hey, we all have a different risk tolerance. We all have a preference for what we'd like to see. For some of those people I've talked, like you could just try to manage it yourself. I mean, if it's a newer home, some investors we've helped out, they're just buying brand new construction around that 325 to 350 mark in some of those kind of surrounding area where it's all growing, and they're doing that exact strategy. Some of them are managing it themselves. Their base is covered, their vacancy repairs, but they're buying brand new stuff, so they're not going to. Their capex is more so just a padding cushion. But practically speaking, you're probably not going to have anything too wrong for a decade before anything major, a roof, a water heater, an HVAC becomes a replacement piece, right? And so those people are doing fine. They're positively cash flowing. They've got some expenses set aside, and they're doing fine. But for some people, just realistically, sometimes that can be the metric, is about that 8 to 10% that you would otherwise pay for management. You either just pay that and call it a peace of mind payment at the end of the day, just that there's somebody else managing it, and that's just the opportunity cost of it all, or you self-manage it yourself, which we've helped plenty of people set up the systems to do so, to manage it themselves. And then, hey, you can always pull like the emergency lever if you need to bring in a property manager. Like that's always the option. Right?
Yeah. You can take it. Well, I'm going to pivot to two last questions for you. Okay. Cool. What has been to date the best deal you've done, and why? And the second question is, what has been the worst deal? And why? Yeah.
Oh, man.
And you could start with whichever one you want to start with first.
It's funny, actually, because I feel like the honest answer to both of those questions is the same house.
Okay. Let's talk about it.
And here's why, right? So it's the home I'm thinking of is our 4-bedroom student rental house downtown in historic Mechanicsville, which is the oldest neighborhood in all of Knoxville. It was the first residential neighborhood in the city's history, which is part of why I like to buy in there, because I think that for those preservationists, like it's hard to get like more. I don't know, if we're really chasing the oldest stuff, like go to the very first neighborhood in Knoxville, but it'd be that house, right? So that was a listing of ours that an investor had owned. And he started doing some work on it, but really not much. And then we had it listed. He got really excited about another property in Georgia where he was looking to move and reinvest there. And so he was really like, man, I really kind of just need to let this thing go. And so kind of like Matt, right? You should just buy it. I'm like, okay. I mean, we could talk. So we figured out a number, and I bought that house. Let's see. I did I did like a walk and talk inspection level on it, not like a full detailed home inspection. Strike number one. Um, because going into it, I thought it was going to be. We bought it for $170,000. I thought it was going to be about like $50,000 worth of work, and I would get $3,200 a month in rent for it. I thought it was just going to be this like home run swing of a deal. So we do like kind of a walk and talk inspection. Through that, I can know, okay, well, like, I mean, there's some termite damage to this thing, right? We could get kind of under the house to see that there was what I thought was maybe 2 floor joists that would have needed to be replaced. So we go into this venture, but really, like any old house, it's a can of worms, dude. You just start opening it up and you're peeling back the layers. And so we're peeling back the layers, right? And this is no, it's not just like 2 floor joists. It's like 14. It's like a majority of the floor system is just gone. You go to we start unpacking the kitchen and get all the plaster walls off, and you can just go to the 2x4s and they just like powder in your hands kind of stuff, right? It's like, oh, this is not good. So that home that I thought was going to be a 3 to 4 month reno and $50,000 turned into 11 months of a renovation and about $120,000 in costs. And so I used private money to do that. That was one of my first forays into borrowing private cash as well. So like shout out to Steve Levine for riding with me on that deal, because I burned through all the money that I borrowed for renovations, which was $50,000, right? And I wasn't anywhere even close to be. We just had it like taken apart and like started to put back together, and I was gone. I had nothing to finish the walls, anything. So
I've been there.
Yeah, so it came to be like, the 6-month balloon on the thing. I was like, Steve, like, dude, I don't have it. I'll keep paying you, like, I'll keep you paying, but like, I'm not asking to borrow any more money, right? I wasn't trying to like really dig myself into a hole. I was just like, dude, I just need 6 months extension. Give me 6 months. Give me till October. It would have been. This was like April, so give me till October. Okay, cool. And in that, right, he gave me the option. He's like, well, do you want to pay 2 points now, or we could just bake in 3 points on the backside? A point being like 1% of the cash borrow, for those who don't know. I was like, I'll take the 3 on the backside, because I didn't have any money right then to take. Shit. Yeah, 100% rolling the dice. I was like, I'll take 3 on the backside. We'll figure it out. So I spent the rest of that year, this is 2022, just hustling my face off to not only pay my own bills, but it was like $60,000 more that I had to just create to just keep this thing funded and put back together. And
the level of stress, I could imagine the level of stress. Plus you got little kids, and Amelia's probably going like, what's happening, right? Yeah. And you're 100% self-employed. Yeah, I get it.
So it was a lot, right? And but in that, so it ended up coming out where, so I was all in for, call it $290. It appraised only at $330 after all my remodel anyway. So I nailed what I thought my ARV was going to be. I grossly underestimated what my renovation budget was going to be in there, right? So I was really confident on a lot of those things, but I really shot myself in the foot on the reno part. And so it appraised. We did a cash out refi. I paid Steve off. I did it by like September, so I actually didn't even need all the way till October. I got it done about a whole month and a half early in that. But paid my lender back, paid all that off, and then the money I essentially got back out of that, like, still didn't equate. I left about like 50-60 grand in that project, right? Because after they do cash out refi at, I don't know, 80% or something like that, it was only like $240,000 is like what I could refinance it at the time for. So I had to leave that money that I already like hustled up and like worked. That shit just sunk into the house, and then I had to kind of just carry that for a whole year, right? And the rate I refinanced was awful. It was like a 9%. The rate.
Oh yeah, it's like interest rates were skyrocketing at the time.
Yeah, it was bad. Yeah. It was so bad. So I had like a 9% loan on it. And this last fall, so I held it for like a year, and I just refinanced it again this past fall, it appraised. It jumped from 330 to 400 in value, so that was cool. There was other sales in the neighborhood. I'm so confident on the long term upside for this neighborhood that I was still fine. Like, cool, I'm just gonna ride it out. It'd be fine because I got my 3,200 that I was after in rent, right? So my note was 2,300. I was getting 32. Like, we're good. It works out, but it really really sucked. And then so that just appraised again for 400. The rent jumped up just now. We just reset a new lease. Now we're at 3,550 in income for a note that's 2,200, right? So great deal. It's one of my best cash flowing properties, right? Bad deal in that it was $120,000 in renovations. Like, good deal. I learned a whole lot. I learned all about like working with the city in historic areas. I learned that that was my first time tearing apart a 100-something-year-old house too. So right, just like learning how these things are built, like what materials you're going to be working with, what's going to be the real challenges you're going to have in trying to source things to try to keep things as period as possible. You know, I am a purist in that. Like, I try to keep as much original stuff as I could. So even as we did all that flooring, for example, it's old heart pine, tongue and groove, and the crawl space is 10, 12 inches deep. So there's no way to replace any of that flooring without taking all that heart pine up. So it's all tongue and groove. So we had to just individually like wedge each piece out, set it aside so it could all go right. I mean, just painstaking work. So yeah, I mean, that's still like one of my favorite properties. Like, I'll hold on to that for forever. I mean, like, really 20 years is before I'm even going to consider letting it go. But
Yeah.
that's definitely my best and my worst for
No,
sure.
that's great. Yeah, because it's the one that kept you up at night, right? Because you're trying to figure out like, how am I going to solve this problem, right? Like, I've got another 50, 60, 70,000 to put into this thing, and I don't know where the money's going to come from, and like,
Yeah, I didn't have
interest
it.
rates. Yeah, interest rates have just spiked up, right? They've doubled in the last year. You know, my wife is looking at me like I'm crazy. I got little kids. I've got this new real estate business that I'm starting. Like, there was a lot, right? So Cory, hats off to you, man. That is what this podcast is all about, because we want to show people the good, the bad, the ugly. You know, nobody escapes, I think, in this world. Nobody escapes kind of like that, curled up in the corner, like being like, what the hell did I just put myself into? But if you keep moving, you'll find a way, you'll find an answer, and it will ultimately be the moments of your biggest growth, right? And so I never want to wish anybody to put themselves into a really big hole. And yet, if you are in a big hole, if you're not willing to just lay over and die, you'll figure out a way to get out of that friggin' hole, and you'll emerge a completely different human, right? From having put yourself in there, right? So if that ever happened to you again, you'd be like, yeah, I've been here before. I know what to do. Like, I can, you know, I'm just like
I can weather the storm. I know exactly what I need to do, and yep, it's yeah, for sure.
Well, Cory, well, thank you for being part of the Income Flip, man. This has been a lot of fun, walking me through your journey and also the journey of what you're building, right? So, fantastic, man.
That's cool. Thank you so much for having me.
Sure thing.